Welcome to the Texas News Podcast, where we dive into all things Texas and the future of independence in the great state of Texas. On today's show, we're going to be taking a trip to the east, not the far east, to the near east, where we're going to be having a conversation with good friend and my colleague from Louisiana, Larkin Jackson. So don't go anywhere. Well, welcome back to the Texas News Podcast. I know it's been a hot minute since we dropped an episode, but now with technical glitches almost out of the way, we are going to be back on a regular schedule. And of course, for this episode, as I said at the very beginning, I'm really excited that this is going to be our first one back in the saddle. We're going to be interviewing, as I said, my colleague, my counterpart from Louisiana, Larkin Jackson. If you guys have not had a chance to meet him or to learn more about Free Louisiana, then this is going to be your opportunity. It really surprises people when we talk about other independence movements that are out there. There are ones that people that we've talked about before. Obviously, Cal Exit we've talked about. We've talked about Alaska. We've mentioned it some. We've had Javier Hernandez on here talking about Puerto Rico. We've had Carla Garrick on here talking about New Hampshire. And today I'm going to be, like I said, I'm super excited that Larkin's going to be on here talking about Free Louisiana. With Louisiana being so close to Texas in a lot of different ways, there are a lot of similarities between our two movements that I believe that people will be able to key in on in this conversation with Larkin. And, this is obviously not the first time that I've spoken with Larkin, and I guarantee you it won't be the last, but this may be your first introduction to the spokesman and the leader of Free Louisiana, Larkin Jackson. Well, Larkin, thank you so much for joining me on the Texas News Podcast. I got to tell you, I'm super excited to be able to introduce you to a lot of the Texas News Podcast audience. But do me a favor and take a moment. My intros just don't do justice. Go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone if you don't mind.
Okay. My name is Larkin Jackson. I'm the president of Free Louisiana. I had the great opportunity of being the spokesperson for our group. And for me, if those who don't know me, I'm a pastor. I've been pastoring for about 10 years in Jefferson Parish, Louisiana. And as I look across the nation and I see the civil unrest that we've been having in the past couple of years, and I just look across that, and I think it's time for Louisiana to become independent, separate from the Union of States.
Well, there you go. Well, look, I'll clue in a little bit of the audience now. You and I met really. Hang on, let me for our video viewers, met in air quotes for the first time really during a kind of a virtual global conference of self-determination
Right.
movements. And for a lot of folks, that was the first time where they were aware to any certain degree that Louisiana had spun up a movement. What was that like for you to be able to participate in that conference kind of early in your organizational life?
Yeah, it was really great to see that there's other people around that have the same fears that I do of a federal government that's ever overreaching. But it was also great to see that across the world there's self-determination movements, independence movements, and that we're not alone. I mean, you look on the North American continent, we have places in Canada, places in Mexico, we have California, we have you guys there in Texas. You have a movement in Florida, movement in Alaska. And so it was good to see that there's other movements that say, hey, there's another option than the one party system, I like to call it, in Washington, D.C. There's another option that we can do. We can just leave this union that's really not fair to the rest of us.
Yeah, it's I tell you, it's been for us and for me personally, it's always encouraging when we can do things like we're doing right now.
Yeah.
We, have the dialogue. Not to sound too cliche, but I mean, the truth is a rising tide raises all ships. And
Right.
I think that's probably no truer than when it comes to the issue of self-determination. And, for Louisiana, it's always been an interesting study for us, simply because Louisiana, if you look at the criteria when you look around the world for independence movements that absolutely have the greatest chance of success, they have the capability or the capacity to be politically, culturally, and economically independent. And Louisiana fits that mold, I mean, to a T. I mean,
Yeah.
Louisiana politics, for good or bad, has its own brand.
It
People,
certainly does.
yeah, and then, obviously from an economic standpoint, you guys have a lot of the same strengths, economically speaking, that Texas does, which is energy,
Yes.
agriculture. I mean, but the cultural aspect of Louisiana, I think, has always been what's fascinating to me, because if there is some place, some state in the United States that exhibits I mean, without a doubt, a cultural distinctiveness, it is Louisiana.
It's a gumbo of cultures that's melded together, and it's something that's very unique. Someone once told me that Louisiana really isn't in the South; it's its own unique nation, and it's really different, much than any other states. Um, Louisiana was founded in 1699, a settlement called Fort Maurepas, and it was settled by the French. Louisiana was claimed for the French king. It was claimed for God and for Christians. And that was in 1682. LaSalle, he had a kind of a ceremony at the mouth of the Mississippi River. And he erected a cross and he claimed it. He claimed to name the soon to be nation Louisiana. And Louisiana is very unique. We have people from France, we have people from Spain, we have cultures from all over the world that are here, and we're our own culture as well. Um, New Orleans was founded in 1718, and it was very unique. We have our own laws here in Louisiana that are distinct from the rest of the U.S. I don't know if you know this, but we don't have English common law. We have Napoleonic Code.
Right.
And so, if you're familiar with common law marriage, I mean, that's something that people today could hear something like that and they know what that is. We don't have that in Louisiana. We don't have counties per se. We have parishes. And so they're distinct and separate, but it's a very unique place. There's a large population here in Louisiana that still speaks French. Um, and we have our own style of music. We have our own style of food. And so it is a very unique and diverse place for sure. Culturally, we are distinct away from most Americans.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, as I said, that's been part of that has always, I think, interested me, and I know a lot of others about that push for, the independence of Louisiana. This unique history and this unique culture. How big of a driver would you say that distinctive culture is in this modern day expression of self-determination, like the Louisiana movement?
Yeah, so it's in our DNA. I mean, people here refer to themselves as Cajuns or Creoles or Acadians rather than Americans. Um, they have their own flag. There's the Acadian flag. Um, they they have when they have a group or something, they called it. Where they're I don't know if you've ever heard of the Cajun Navy.
Mhm.
They go around the world and rescue people, and that started from Katrina. But it's really that that spirit of independence is in our DNA. Um, when Louisiana was founded, we were under French rule, but we switched a couple sides. We went from to Spanish rule and then back to French rule, and then we were purchased. Uh, every American child school has learned about the Louisiana Purchase. And they say how great that is for America, but really, Louisiana had no say in that at all. That happened in 1803, and Thomas Jefferson purchased Louisiana from Napoleon. Napoleon was in his wars in Europe, and he needed some money. And so he purchased us, and one day the American flag raised up in New Orleans, and things changed. And it changed so much that the governor that Jefferson had brought from Virginia here to New Orleans, the governor sent a message back to Jefferson, "Hey, if there's talk there's talk of going independent amongst the people. People aren't happy." In fact, they in 1804, the year after Louisiana was purchased, the people of New Orleans got together and they sent over a, a document. They sent representatives to Washington, and they simply told the U.S. Senate. They said, "Hey, we're taxed and we have no votes. We have no voice. There is taxation without representation." And they said that you speak a language we don't speak. You practice a religion we don't practice. And if you don't give us the same rights that we had before, then we'll go another way. And so Jefferson's plan for Louisiana was to eventually make it a state, but he had to hurry that along because the people were wanting their independence. The people were wanting their legal system. They wanted to make sure they had the same rights that they had before American rule.
Right. Well, and I can understand how that thread weaves through the DNA. And
Oh yeah.
the secret that I think is important for people to understand, right? Particularly when you're talking about what you're talking about, is that past informs what we do today.
Oh yeah.
In some ways, it motivates what we do today. It's sort of a continuation of this long thread of history from that day to this, and really speaks to the attitude of being inclined toward independence. But from that standpoint, kind of tell me a little bit about how Free Louisiana got founded as a movement. Let's talk about Ren and sort of the nuts and bolts of that.
So for most part of my life, I thought that America should be two separate nations. If you look at it everywhere, we're in politics and culturally, we're kind of split down the middle. You have the left, you have the right, and you also have a culture of wickedness and a culture of righteousness. As a pastor, I see that. And it really was the birth of my son. I don't mean to make it that dramatic, but it really was the birth of my son. I realized as I looked at him, I said, you know what? I'm a pastor. My dad's a pastor. My grandfather's a pastor. And we were able to preach the gospel and give the gospel message to people. One day, my son may not have that freedom because we're going down a path that freedoms are being taken away. And if you look at the trends of the West Coast and the East Coast, and you look at the politics, they seem to be overpowering the middle. And I think a middle America, if you look at as a whole, we're very much conservative. But the coast, they're very much a different type of people than we are. And so I looked at that and I said, there needs to be another way. Maybe we can find the right man to put in office. Maybe we can vote in another type of government. But if you look at history, especially modern day politics, you've seen there's promises made by the Conservative Party, and then the promises are not kept. Time and time again, we see, hey, we're going to do this. We're going to make this place better. We're going to give you more rights, more freedoms, and there is there's always a failure. The man who makes the promises never comes through. And so I said to myself, I need to find other like-minded people. So in December of 2023, I began to look for others, like-minded people, and we began to find other people, and we had meetings, and we met and we really found a common goal to make Louisiana its own independent nation so that it can ensure American traditional ideals, the ideals that I grew up with, the promises that I was given. I want to ensure that for the next generation to come. And so we launched in July of 2024. And ever since then, we've been building and hopefully one day we can see a Louisiana that's truly independent and separate from Washington.
Yeah, it's I mean it really is the common goal. You know, when we talked about earlier about all these different independence movements throughout the various states, I mean it's ultimately the thing that we share. You know, there may be some overlap in some areas. There's probably a tremendous amount of overlap between Texas and Louisiana from a
Right.
policy perspective. But equally is that yearning for being able to govern ourselves. You know, the fact that we need to be able to be self-governing, and each of us is stable enough and large enough. I mean, you know, we've got everything we need to be an independent nation. But let's talk about what happened after the foundation, right? So, you got kicked off, and obviously, you've been able to gauge that there is enough support in Louisiana to begin to build that organized strength
Yes.
and power. Can you tell us what you found out? You know, as far as polling numbers, you know, support
Sure.
numbers, kind of where are you guys at right?
In 2022, there was a poll that was asked by Louisianans, should we leave the union or not? And 50% are in favor of actually moving Louisiana away from Washington, D.C. And so that poll right there just told me, hey, this is something that the people of Louisiana can get behind. And so that really kind of strengthened my yes. Hey, now is the time to start. And now's the time to get something put together. And so I was able to get in touch with Hy McHenry. He's our vice president. He's a local radio talk show host at New Orleans, and he's also a Southern Baptist minister. And him and I really got together and started building a team to really push this forward. So right now, we're at the point in our organization where people have heard about us and they're reaching out to us, saying, "Hey, what can we do? Hey, this is what I do. Hey, I organize events. If you need an event organized, I'm here to help." And so we're really young in our organization still, and we're still trying to find common voices, like-minded people. And I can say that practically in every parish in Louisiana, there's someone there that says there's a better way than doing the same old, same old. Have a Republican president. Every 4 to 8 years, have a Democratic president, and it's this teeter totter has to end.
Yeah.
And so the goal that we have is to become independent, and and that thought is common in the people of Louisiana. That spirit of independence is with people everywhere.
Yeah. Well, fantastic. Well, Larkin, you know, we have, you know, we have talked back and forth some. We visited a little bit before we started the recording today. Um, you know, there are people out there that predicted the death of independence movements during a Trump presidency, you know, for guys like you, guys like us, you know, New Hampshire kind of different. I mean, they obviously predicted that Calexit would explode during a Trump presidency. But our experience has been very different in that, you know, from the predictions of the naysayers,
Right.
they were too busy after the election results drilling nails into the lid of our coffin or prepping us for our coffin, which tells you they really don't understand what motivates independent support. I mean, have you guys noticed any lulls since Trump got elected?
Any loss?
No, any lulls,
Any loss?
awesome
No.
enthusiasm. No.
No, I don't see any loss of enthusiasm at all. In fact, uh, I think people are waking up to the failures of the current administration, the promises that were made, and it seems like some things are just not being delivered. I mean, we were talking before the show about Doge, and man, what great promise we had in there. We were going to have all these departments stripped of their funding, and we saw some of that, but not really a lot. And maybe it appeased some people, but I think Louisianans are smart enough to look at that and say that's not what was promised. And so, and also, if you look at this, there's the swamp is still there. I thought that we were going to get rid of the swamp in D.C., but at my count now, I think last I checked, it was like 67 different federal injunctions against, maybe injunctions is not the word, but federal rulings against the current administration, what they're trying to get done, get accomplished. And so the swamp is still there. And unfortunately, the promises that are made are not coming into fruition. And so the federal government is still a failure, and it's just too big for one man, for one administration to get over. And so I think it's time to separate, and I think it's time for Louisiana citizens to focus on home and keep our eyes here and look at politics here, and what our legislature is doing here, because this thing is going to unravel.
Yeah.
Uh, if you look at the U.S. dollar and look at the U.S. dollar against gold and the U.S. dollar against silver, you can look at that almost every day. You can see the differences. And, someone showed me a silver note from 1958, the $5 silver note. And if you had the amount of silver that $5 federal note promised, if you had that, it would be today, it's like over $150 worth of silver. And so the US dollar is not in a good place. And we can see that there is an end to this. All this debt that we have, the federal government has made promises. Uh, all this debt is going to come a judgment day. And I hope that Louisiana isn't a part of that judgment day. I hope we're out of there by then.
Well, and that's the sense of urgency, right? I mean, people should. I'll tell you this because you and I can speak as leader of one movement to a leader of another movement. Uh, I can tell you that the vast majority of people within the Texas independence movement and inside the TNM have expressed their I guess you would call it, I'm not going to call it glee because it's not that, but they're happy that Trump got elected and not
Yeah.
Kamala Harris. But the vast majority read this in a very different way than the outside world might, which is they see this as an opportunity to kind of make hay while the sun shines, right?
Yes.
We don't have jackboots kicking in the doors today, but whatever wrecking ball that Trump is taking to the federal apparatus or whatever kind of chaos is being caused, we're all happy about that because frankly, everyone wants to see the federal government suffer like they've made everybody else suffer. But, I think everyone has resigned themselves, not everyone, but the vast majority of our supporters have resigned themselves to this being a temporary situation that, really nothing in the long term is getting fixed. And
Right.
you just mentioned it there, this sense of urgency that exists because, we're not 3 years or 3.5 years away from that pendulum swinging the other way. It's much, much closer.
Yes. Yeah, and people are fooling themselves if they think that it's not going to swing the other way, because it will. And every time it swings, it gets more extreme and more extreme. And I still remember when FBI agents knocked on Louisiana doors and went to citizens and said, "Hey, this post on social media that you made, let's talk about that." I still remember when the Biden administration stopped LNG plants from operating or building in Lake Charles, and so I still remember that, and I know that similar situations are going to happen again.
Yeah.
They're inevitable, and it's only going to get worse and worse. And so, it's kind of like this: Mom and dad are fighting, and we've grown up, and we just want to leave home peacefully.
Bottom line, I mean, look, I was laughing with Marcus Reeves Evans from Cal Exit. I was on the phone with him the other night. We were laughing about the fact that things have degenerated in the federal system so much that the people advocating for state independence are the adults, the rational adults in the room. You know,
True.
I mean, this is how bad things have gotten in the federal system. We're the grown folks.
Yes. Yeah, we're looking out at the schoolyard and we're seeing a fight,
Yeah.
and we want to break it up before it gets to that point. And midterms are just about to come up, and there's going to be a fight. There's going to be protests in major cities. We know the mo. We know what's going to happen. History is going to repeat itself. We may have another summer of love, and there's going to be violence in the streets again. But we know that's what's going to happen. And so, instead of letting history repeat itself, why don't we change our future? We don't have to live in a system um, that that is oppressive. We don't have to live in a system where there are distinctively two groups of people that disagree on absolutely everything. You know, uh, how can two walk together unless they agree? The Bible tells us,
Yeah.
and so we there is a better system, and it's a system that we can build after we leave this federal union. Louisiana existed before the United States came together, and we can do that again. And Louisiana is unique enough culturally, and they're strong enough economically. I always get the comments online. Well, don't you know that Louisiana receives 40-something% in federal aid? Well, part of that is Louisiana taxpayers. Part of that is also um, the Louisiana is the number one in the world for exporting liquid natural gas. So we're really strong economically. We hold the mouth of the Mississippi River, where we see millions and millions of dollars of trade that flows through there. And Louisiana doesn't see anything as far as fees, port fees at all. And so there's a path forward for Louisiana economically and culturally. There's a path forward for independence.
Yeah, it's amazing how these federal apologists, and I'm not just talking about the U.S. ones. I'm even talking about the Canadian ones, right?
Yeah.
They want to use the same arguments. I mean, it's the same thing. Literally, what you just described, which is not just the economic case for independence, but the economic case for the viability of an independent Louisiana. It's essentially the same case that we make in Texas. It's the same case that we've heard in Alberta.
Yeah.
Alberta Prosperity Project just released a document where they have fully costed out a post Canadian independent Albertan government. It's the same thing that we heard from Javier Hernandez when he was talking about Puerto Rico, because Puerto Rico is impoverished primarily because the politicians, the pro US politicians there, use that as a case for requesting more federal money, which then they skim off of, and they do nothing to improve the situation where independence there would be an economic boon to a place like Puerto Rico. So, I mean, these cases are so similar in that regard, and what is at the heart of this is a centralized government that literally exists to take the skim. And the last time I heard that was called the mafia, right? So, I just, I look at it and, there are people out there that would say Louisiana can't make it as an independent nation. I'm like, you guys have never looked at their economy.
Yeah.
No idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, when the world needs liquid natural gas like never before, Europe is crying for it.
Yeah.
I mean, they need it bad, and Asia needs it bad, and we're the number one exporter in the world for that. But we're a resource colony. That's what we are,
No,
and we're stripped. I mean, right now we're about to see North Louisiana stripped for lithium, And so what we are, we're a resource colony. I want to change that. I think we can. I think there's enough people in Louisiana we're going to stand up and say no. It's enough.
Well, so let's talk about where you guys go from here. So, we know that every independence movement and really truly every state in the United States has its own unique pathway. And California, they've got initiative and referendum, so they can do a citizen initiative. We know that Alaska has got not just that, but they've got some legal filings they could do based
Mhm.
off international law. Hawaii's kind of the same way. Um, you know, Obviously New Hampshire is going to have to pursue the constitutional amendment. Here we have to go through the legislature to get a referendum. What does your path in Louisiana look like?
And so, unlike California, they have a citizen-led referendum movement. We're more accustomed to what you guys have. We have to have the state legislature basically bring forth a bill and puts forth the question for the people of Louisiana, and it's going to be non-binding. But the question is, should Louisiana leave the United States of America? And so that's the path that we have to go through right now. I I wish that it was petition led. That would be wonderful. And there are certain parishes that do have ways to petition to change laws. But as for on a state level, it's going to be through the legislature, and to make a referendum. And so our goal right now is really to build a roots effort in all 64 parishes. We want to have a team in place in every parish that can build support and go and advocate on behalf of Louisiana independence, and go to that legislator and go to that state rep, that state senator, and really build a relationship with them, and find some champions in Baton Rouge. This past legislature session, this past summer, we were able to use our volunteer base to make phone calls and emails, and actually go to different representatives and get some sovereignty bills passed. And so we're making those first steps now into the halls of the state capitol, and we're building some relationships. And so we're really at the start of building those relationships, and talking to those state representatives. And it's good. It's good that we found some people in the state legislature that said, you know what, maybe Louisiana can. And so I got a couple maybes, and so that's very encouraging to have some champions. And so right now that's where we're at. We're trying to have parish teams, and those parish teams go to their state rep, go to their state senator, and eventually the goal is to get a referendum bill on the House floor, get it passed, and then have the vote and put it before the Louisiana citizen and ask the question. And I'm sure that once it gets on the ballot box, I'm sure with the polling that we have, we're going to see Louisiana declare itself independent, say, hey, we want to leave the U.S.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer, right? I mean, the upside is, people think about all the kind of grief and all the work that we have to put into this. But once we get to that referendum point, I mean, we still have to work to get the votes. We got to
Right.
do all that retail. But can you imagine for a moment having to be on the opposite side of that equation and trying to argue why $37 trillion worth of debt is great for your state, or why massive inflation is awesome? I mean, just all the stupid things the opposition has to argue in favor of to convince people that staying is the best option.
Yeah. What a losing argument that is. I would hate to be on that side of the argument. And so, but I know it's a winning argument. I know if we put it before the Louisiana people, they're going to decide to leave. And so right now we have to build those relationships. Right now we have to reach out to state reps, to state senators, and we have to go the path. So what we've done to kind of get that ball rolling is we've started going to different other political movements. For instance, we've was able to partner with the Libertarian Party of Louisiana. So this past January 25th of 2025, uh, the state party, the Libertarian State Party, passed a resolution in favor of the legislature to ask put the question before the Louisiana people: should Louisiana leave the United States? And so that was great that we have good partners in the Libertarian Party, and right now we're going to try to go forward to other political parties and make the case in front of them. And so we're finding like-minded voices. We're finding like-minded people that are saying this is a good idea, and or just give the Louisiana people a choice. Louisiana never had a choice whether to join the union or not. We were purchased. We were bought, and so we never had a choice. And I just want to give the average Louisiana citizen a choice.
Well, it's it's kind of the same case that Alaska makes, and
Okay.
it would be interesting to see a conversation with you guys, because ultimately it's the case that they make, which is, and I think Puerto Rico too. It's like, we really weren't given a choice.
Yes.
We were just kind of grafted into this thing, and
Right.
we were not given our rights
Yeah.
to self-government. And so,
Right.
go ahead.
Well, when Louisiana was first purchased, Thomas Jefferson, he installed Virginia politicians, his buddies, his friends, and installed them. The governor was from Virginia. The council that was set up, they were from Virginia, and so we didn't even have a voice in our own government.
Yeah.
And I think that it's high time that Louisiana has a choice.
That is well said. Well, Larkin, why don't you we're getting close to the end here. Why don't you tell people how they can connect with Free
Yeah.
Louisiana?
Sure. So if you would just go to our website, freelouisiana.org, freelouisiana.org, there you're going to find some different things, some frequently asked questions. You'll find out the why. And if you want to volunteer, that would be very beneficial. We need people to advocate. We need people to make some phone calls, to reach out, to get the word out. So if you're in Louisiana, I know this is maybe toward a Texas audience, but if you're in Louisiana, please visit freelouisiana.org. If you're outside Louisiana, you want to help the movement, of course, we have donations there. You can help us there. And every day we're focused on making Louisiana its own independent state, separate from the U.S.
Well, fantastic. Well, Larkin, thank you for doing this. We're definitely going to have to do it again. You and I obviously will be talking again, not necessarily on the podcast, but I really do appreciate you doing this, and appreciate the work that you guys are doing over there in Louisiana. It's good. I mean, the relationship between Texas and Louisiana is so close that,
Yes.
it would be a shame for you guys not to have a movement, right? Because
Yes.
we got to collab in all these things, right? Um,
Yes.
I where I live, and I know the listeners and viewers know this, where I live in Texas, I tell people all the time, I'm so far east, I'm still in Texas, but the gumbo is good. So, it's just, we're that close. We gotta do this thing. So, we're looking forward to working with you guys more in the future, Larkin. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Again, a very big thank you to Larkin Jackson from Free Louisiana for joining me on this episode of the Texas News Podcast. Very excited to have him on, and definitely go visit the website, learn more about what's going on there. And you may say, you know what, Daniel, I don't have time, I don't care, I'm not in Louisiana, but you should, right? Whether you're in Louisiana or not, it's important for all of us here in Texas to understand this fundamental fight for self-determination that's going on, not just in Texas, but in so many other places around the world, and especially when it's taking place in what is essentially our own backyard. So head over there, go over to the Free Louisiana website, check out what Larkin and those guys are doing, and lend them a hand if you have an opportunity. Okay. Before I wrap up this episode, I do want to thank you guys for being so very patient with the time between the last episode and this episode. It's been crazy, right? From technical difficulties to scheduling issues. It has been extraordinarily difficult, but hey, we're making it work and we're getting it done, and we are back on track. And like I said at the very beginning, I'm very happy that Larkin was our first one back. Coming up, we've got interviews with a lot of Texas first pledge signers and candidates that are going to be running for office in this next election cycle. We've got guests coming on and topics where we're talking more about some of the things that are happening inside the Texas legislature. I think we all are aware of what has transpired with the existing session. Going to be, we're already, as we're recording this, we're in the starting phase of a special session called by Greg Abbott. And we're going to have a major, it will have a major impact on what happens moving forward in this election cycle. But on another note, while we will be covering that, I will tell you that here we're going to be diversifying a lot of the content. The Texas News Podcast will not be the only podcast that we are doing for the TNM. And I wanted to take this episode as an opportunity to talk about that. And we may actually chop this part of it and release it as its own video. But in the TNM moving forward, part of the challenge in producing podcasts like the Texas News Podcast is that, number one, it is a massive time requirement, but it's also very limiting on scope. And what we have heard from you guys, whether it's from comments and feedback on these episodes, from raw data and analytics, from the various platforms in which it's posted, to emails that we've received, to actual questions that I've gotten during my Thursday night live stream called Late Night Coffee Talk. It's that you want some more diversified topics. The things that you want to hear about are not necessarily Texas news. And so while Texas News works for that sort of content, it's nice to have it. Texas News as a podcast will not be going anywhere, but it will be a much tighter focus on what's on the 10, right? It's going to be Texas News. We're going to be talking about those sorts of things. But you have expressed your desire to see other things, to hear other topics, for us to interview other guests, where the interview like I did today with Larkin, or the one that I did with Jack Miller from the Cape Independence Movement, or Javier Hernandez from Puerto Rico exit, or, those reside in a sort of a different space than Texas News. And then there have been people that have expressed an interest in having me deep dive specifically on historical issues. I got a question one night on Late Night Coffee Talk about the issue related to Texas being admitted to the Union by treaty. And I had to break that down. And so there have been requests for things that have a more historical focus. And then we've had requests, even additional to that, of people that want a more, some content dealing specifically with Texas nationalism. And then you top that off with people who want content about practical activism, where we have something like similar to that in the TM, it's called the Texas Accelerator, and it's been primarily reserved for applicants in leadership. There has been a desire expressed by many of you out there for content specifically related to that. What are practical things that I can do to help move Texas closer toward independence? So we're taking all of that feedback into account, all of the data, all of the feedback, just everything that we possibly can. And we are going to expand the content offering. Some will be audio only podcasts. Some will be video and audio like this. Some will be just video. Some will be 3 to 5 minutes. Some will be 15 to 30 minutes. Some will be full hour exposés. But more importantly, some of these things are going to end up being reserved for people who are members of the TNM, or say the TNM's YouTube channel, right? That are channel members. So we're going to have to take some of this content because of what it takes to produce it and what you've asked for. And we're going to have to put it behind a paywall. I mean, that's just the bottom line. So what I would encourage you guys to do is continue to give us your feedback, right? We can only make strategic decisions here if we get as much feedback as we possibly can from as many people as we possibly can. But just keep that feedback coming, but also support our efforts. Look, if you have an opportunity right now to make a contribution to the Texas nationalist movement, do so. If you're on YouTube, become a channel member. I'll while this is happening, I'll put some things on the screen. We'll make sure to put donation links in the show notes. But this thing only happens if you help make it happen, right? It's your vision we're trying to execute here. And so, with your help, we can execute your vision of a free, self governing, and independent nation of Texas. All right. Well, friends, that is a wrap for this episode of the Texas News. A big thank you again to Larkin Jackson. And I will leave you with the words I leave you with every time we're together. They're not my words, they're the words of Sam Houston when he said that Texas will again lift its head and stand among the nations. I believe that time is now. And the question is, will you stand with her?